Thank you for having me. Thank you for welcoming me home to Israel. And it's an honor to be in front of so many, not just leaders, but leaders who are leading change. Thank you. So I'm home. This is Giveret Rabinovich on the left. In 1967, my brother Ariel, who's here with me today, myself, I was 3, he was 4, my sister was 2. We came to Israel for a 10-day holiday. On the 10th day, my mother went into a toy store to buy toys to occupy us on the way home. Mrs. Rabinovich said to my mother, "You can't possibly take these children out of Israel. We need you." 2 hours later, we were in the Gan. And she called my father and said, "Alex, I'm not coming home." And so began our journey and our love affair with Israel. And that's my mother, Zichrona Livracha, on the right. I went to school at Berlozerov 1 year. I played soccer, began soccer. Then I went to Tel Aviv. This is me somewhere in there in 5th grade. הייתי שמנמן, דובי השמן, בבטן יש לו בן, איך קוראים לבן, דובי השמן. I'm still traumatized, which is why I'm getting it out. Speaking of trauma, I was an American who couldn't get a tov moed in English. Bilti maspeak was the best I could do. But it's not easy to get grades this low. It takes a lot of work to be that bad. It's true. But I had an excuse. I was severely learning disabled and dyslexic. And when students read in class and focused on the lesson, I was looking around trying to figure out with fear, when are they going to call on me? And I would practice that paragraph. And in that practice of saving myself, I think I developed an empathy and a compassion for the human condition, for my surroundings, and who else is not being thought of. And that brings me to my bar mitzvah at 13, and after that we returned to the United States. And I've come back home, and I now live in New York, and I've brought with me just one idea. And I'm going to spend up to 30 minutes trying to bring one idea to life, trying to connect with you on this one idea. And if on the merits it resonates, I'm going to ask you to take one action. I'm going to illustrate the idea with 2 stories. Southwest Airlines is the single most successful airline in United States history, especially as compared to so many other airlines that go bankrupt. Recently, I landed in Las Vegas. The flight attendant, as the plane came to the gate, came on the loudspeaker with passion and enthusiasm and said, "Listen, we've done research in Southwest Airlines, and it turns out if you simply cross your seatbelts one over the other before you get off the plane, you will have good luck at the gambling tables." And like you, we all laughed, but we did it. There is a federal law that seatbelts must be crossed before the next plane takes off. Through how? She reached out and connected with us. She got us to help her airline achieve that advantage, compliance. It also turns out that Southwest Airlines turns their planes around 6 minutes faster than their nearest competitor. How long would it have taken her by herself to go up and down the aisles and cross all the seatbelts? You figured it out, 6 minutes. Through how she connected with us, she got us to help her organization gain a competitive advantage. There is no manual or rule book in that organization that says that when you land in Las Vegas, you must tell the gambling joke. Nor is she paid extra to do that. There is a tarbut, a culture that inspires her to unleash her character and creativity on behalf of something bigger than herself. Moving to Michigan, my second story, they had a crisis. The University of Michigan Health Systems was being sued increasingly for medical malpractice. The doctors got together and they got in touch with their arachim, their values, and they said, "We are in the healing business. Every time we harm a patient, if we misdiagnose them or mistreat them, why don't we simply say slicha?" What do you think the lawyer said to them? Absolutely not. We have more money. We can fight these people. We never say you're sorry. It's an admission of guilt. It will render us vulnerable. The doctor said it's the right thing to do. And they started to apologize only when they, in truth, felt they were wrong. If they felt they were right, they fought. Lawsuits went down by 50%. Payouts went down by 50%. Other hospitals started following this practice, and now 37 United States of America have passed laws whereby apologies in the court of law cannot be held against you. Through their leadership, inspired by values, they improved their organization and society. The problem is, we live in a world where these stories are the exception to the rule. They're rare. You know it. The reason they're rare, and there are many ways to bring this to life, is that national in the United States and international employee engagement scores that measure how much people care about their company, how connected they are to their organization, have never been lower. 7 out of 10 workers are disengaged on the job. And 2 out of those 7 are actively disengaged, meaning they are actively engaged in the activity of sabotage. They are on Facebook saying bad things about their company. This is not just a jobs crisis, this is a careers crisis. People in the job are playing batzel. They are not flying out of bed, and they are not contributing their best. They're not innovating and thereby creating jobs and more jobs for their brothers and sisters and cousins and uncles. This is a crisis, a careers crisis. And why do we have it? Well, let's go back to fundamentals. We have disconnected, in my view, from fundamentals. Some of you know, and many of you may not know. The father of modern capitalism, and I am a capitalist, was Adam Smith. He wrote The Wealth of Nations. Most people think he was an economist who described how markets and people behave and how people will behave under certain circumstances. He was not an economist. He was a moral philosopher. He was the chairman of the moral philosophy department at Glasgow University when he wrote The Wealth of Nations. He was writing a manifesto not for how people can or can't or will behave. He was writing a manifesto for how markets and people should behave. And instead of this remaining our manifesto, we disconnected, and Management 101 chose a different leader to listen to. The most famous scene in the movie The Godfather, and most people that I speak to raise their hand when I ask them if they hear The Godfather quoted by managers and leaders. Raise your hand if you hear The Godfather quoted, right? There you go. Many of you have raised your hands. What is the most famous line in The Godfather? It's not personal, it's just business. If we can create a separate space where it's just business and we go to funerals and we hear that he was a schmuck at work, but a loving father, and a ruthless negotiator, but a caring father, if it's just business, then greed is good. Just do it, I don't care how or ech. Just get it done. Too big to fail. Zero sum. These are rational strategies if it is just business. However, if it's personal, then how we do what we do matters, as we know. I believe that we live, and I believe you believe that we live in a personal world. Facebook, if it were a country, would have almost 1 billion citizens. Generation X and Y who are going to be joining companies, and they will not receive an email. They will get a hashtag or an @ and they will join a social, corporate, organizational conversation. We live in a world, whatever you think about what's going on in the world, we have democratized to the individual the power to be a source or force for good or the opposite, harm. One banker in London can lose $2 billion for his bank at his terminal, wipe out bonuses for his whole company, and introduce risk into global markets. And one vegetable vendor in Tunisia and a few friends and cell phone cameras and Facebook can spark a revolution towards freedom. And we hope constructive good can come from that. If we think that these social movements are outside the walls which are coming down of corporations and organizations, the leading United States business magazine says, social power and the coming corporate revolution. Why employees and customers will be calling the shots. Many of you probably have heard of the company Netflix, where you can download videos. They felt that they were powerful because they had become so big that they could not fail. They were counting subscribers one after the other. They felt so powerful that they passed a price increase. And 800,000 of their subscribers in 48 hours got together and left and crashed the company stock. Bank of America tried to charge just $5 for a debit card, and the same thing happened, and they reversed strategy and said, Slicha. I don't need to say anything about this, besides that this phenomena, this energy in the connected world is global. It's universal. Why would I put a picture of Mubarak right here in Jerusalem? Not because of a reason you think. I just recently had lunch with an American CEO who said to me, Dov, I've got a new problem maybe you could help me deal with. They got rid of Mubarak and it took them only 17 days, and he had a military, he had tanks. I do not have tanks. What if my consumers or employees want to throw me out of here because of how, I run this company, or how we relate to society? Did you ever think we would live in a time where business leaders, powerful individuals would ask such questions? I believe this time is a new era. Ha'idan ha'itnagut, the era of behavior. I am not naive. Behavior has always mattered. I am simply saying that it matters more than ever, and in ways it never has before. Now, if you're not in a new era, we can talk about reform and rebooting and resetting and tinkering at the margins and improving things. If it's a new era, we have to listen to another hero of ours who said, in a new era, don't bring thinking from an old era. It's time to rethink fundamentals, leadership, behavior, values, organizations, society, politics, etc. We are in a new era. And in the era of behavior, behavior itself needs to be rethought. When do we tell a child to behave? Right after he misbehaves. Titneeg olech lecheder. We talk about good behavior. He came out of prison early for good behavior. Behavior is something defensive and preventative. The more connected the world gets, the more the source of advantage has shifted to behavior. Logically, the following is true. If the only reason one of you is at or works at your organization is what you're paid, you should leave if someone pays you more. If the only reason you buy from a company is price, you should switch loyalties if that price is undercut. And in this world, we can't capture people, we can't command them. There's no artificial barriers. People come and go. So everybody is in search of deeper, deeper glue. And the glue that holds on to people is behavior, how we treat them, how we create trust in our relationships, how we create deep loyalty. To tell you how far we need to go, if you go into the Oxford or Webster's dictionary, the word outsell, outfox, outsmart, outmaneuver, outbox, outdrink, these are all words because they made it into the dictionary because they describe how we think and how we behave. They describe our habits of thought and behavior. The word outbehave is not a word. The very idea that our behavior is the source of excellence, that we can win strategically by creating organizations that behave better, that relate better, that create more trust and keep more promises, I kid you not, is a new idea. Companies are starting to get that we are in a new era. The human energy company, the human element, the human network, human flourishing, we speak human. One company after another is saying, let's have a relationship not because of the product or service we provide or sell, Not because of how we make money, but because of who we are, our humanity, and how we translate the humanity into leadership, governance, and behavior. Now, I know that many of you are thinking, is this just marketing? But marketing always runs ahead. Marketing is telling us where competitive advantage has shifted to. You know, so the first thing we need to rethink is behavior itself and put humanity and the translation of humanity into 21st century behaviors at the core. The second thing we need to rethink comes from this common phrase. What you measure is what you get. We love to keep score in life and in business and in organizational life. But what we measure is a window into what we value and even into our values themselves. And the fact is, what do we measure? How much, comma. How much GDP, how much market share, how much profit, how much revenue, and in the new economy, how many clicks and page views and friends and followers, how much, how much, how much. But if we live in a morally interdependent world where we rise and fall together, we need to find a way to measure the how we relate to each other so that we can do the how and scale the how and embed the how into the fabric and DNA of our institutions. That's precisely what we've just done. We went to 18 countries, including Israel, and we did an independent statistical study and analysis of how leaders and their people behave and how organizations behave. And we found startling statistics and some good and bad news. The first thing we found is that most organizations fall into 3 categories. One category is blind obedience. Taseh et ze, lama kacha, lama ki amarti lecha, my way or the highway. We know these organizations. We've seen them. Hierarchical, rigid, top-down, very vertical. Lots of coercion, lots of fear. The next organization is informed acquiescence. People know what's expected of them. They're about success. If you play by the rules, everything will be fine. You'll get ahead. If you don't play by the rules, you'll be gone. And everybody needs to play by the rules. These are very rational, winning organizations. But they're starting to fail. The next organization is what I call self-governance. People come from the heart. They do the right thing because not to do the right thing is not a failure to comply with somebody else's rules. It's a betrayal of oneself. It's a disconnection from values and principles. These companies are about pursuing significance, not just success in the world. And that's what makes them focus on the how. Here's what we found. If you can create one of these organizations, you will have so much less misconduct. If you can create one of these organizations in public or private life, you will have much more innovation, employee loyalty, satisfied customers, the adoption of new ideas, a good reputation. People will recommend the company to friends, and you will have financial performance. That's the good news. The bad news? Only 3% of organizations worldwide, independently confirmed, are self-governing. But we shouldn't expect any better. We just entered a new era. And the winners are going to go on a journey. These are the different statistics that we found. We measured significance and resiliency and level of trust and time horizon. Do we think short-term or long-term? Israel came out pretty much exactly where all the other companies came out, except for one, speaking up. Israelis do a lot better job at speaking up in meetings and wherever they find themselves. And I'm proud of that. But we have a huge disconnect. CEOs already believe that they're there, that they've arrived. They already believe that there is an inspiring culture like Southwest Airlines when the fact is it does not exist. They think that they are inspiring people where people feel coerced through fear. The United States and Mexico are the most rosy. People by 8 to 1. The United States CEOs are at 17%. Relative to the 3% employee average, and the Germans are the most realistic. The top and the bottom agree. We don't self-govern, and we both know it. So we have to rethink behavior, and we need to rethink measurement. We got to stop measuring just how much and measure the how so that we can do the how. And finally, to do that and to close this massive gap between those who are in charge and those who are in charge of getting the work done, it's going to be about leadership. People that fill this great room. Well, I've been thinking about leadership a lot more lately. I became a father not too long ago. Thank you. And Judaism is about Shem Tov, and I gave my son the name Lev because it's a good name, heart. Because I believe that milim minalev, sheyotzim minalev, nichnasim lelev, and I want him to be values-based. But how will he earn his good name? Through how he behaves. And hopefully we can build institutions that his leaders will inspire him. And I've been thinking about this global little citizen who can out-navigate his father online and does better on an iPad than I do. But the only chance I have is to put values in him that he never loses his place in the world and home. He's growing up nicely. He's becoming a global citizen. And now I'm proud to say that I have bribed him. Because he's 4, you can still bribe a 4-year-old, but later on I don't get to bribe him with Hebrew. And when I think of the kinds of leaders that the world needs to be enveloped and permeated in and by, I look to sports. And the reason I look to sports is because sports is about peak performance. If you don't win, you're out. It's all about winning and advantage. And I'm here to tell you that there's a renaissance going on. Let's start with sports because they're at the cutting edge typically in society. American football is the ultimate too big to fail sport. Coaches have been known to scream and be dictators. It's ultimate about how much can you bench press, how fast can you run, how long can you play. And the last 6 mamnim, managers, coaches, leaders of the United States Super Bowl are coached and have been coached by coaches who are quiet. Tony Dungy brags about being quiet. They talk about the meaning and significance of being a champion, outperforming the competition on the field by outbehaving the competition off the field. What is going on that coaches have gone silent? They're bringing humanity. They're creating cultures in the locker room that make sport more than sport. Vicente Del Bosque had a crisis. Spain lost game 1 of the World Cup in soccer. That is as big of a crisis as you can see in sport. Instead of swapping players, yelling at them, he put them in a room for 20 minutes and said, talk amongst yourselves about our values, what makes us great, what got us here, who were we on our best day. And he walked out of the room and he let them self-govern. Figure it out by yourself. I trust you. And they went on to win the World Cup. What these coaches understand is that there are only 3 ways to get another human being to do something if you are their leader. You can coerce them, my way or the highway. Just do it. Or you can motivate them, not just with sticks, but with carrots and bonuses and stock options. Carrots and sticks exist out here. They're external to us. They stimulate us. But we're in a recession. There are fewer carrots to go around. And when I have a carrot, I don't share my bonus with somebody else. What these leaders have come to understand that in a world that is personal, globally interdependent, the behaviors we want can no longer be coerced. If we live in a world of just factory assembly lines, if you give me enough carrots, I could get another human being to behave robotically, mechanistically, and repetitively with carrots and sticks. But you can't tell another human being to go into a room and not come out until they have an idea. And you can't tell 2 people to go in a room and not come out until they learn to meaningfully get along and collaborate. The behaviors we want today, the resiliency, representing your institution honorably in public, collaboration with people from different cultures, and so on and so on. These behaviors cannot be coerced or motivated. They can only be inspired. And the first 2 letters in the word inspired are in. It comes from within. And when we operate from within, we must be operating from our values. Values is what's in us. And we translate those values into principles and then into behaviors. And when we come from values, we are self-governing and operating from within. Thank you. And I say this to you as a matter of winning strategy. How many of you want progress in your lives? I'm about to wrap up. I have 5 more minutes to connect with you further. Just raise your hand on my most simple question of the day. How many of you want progress? Simple question. Keep your hand up if to have progress we need to innovate. We got to do something better than before. And keep your hand up if in order to innovate, we need to take some risk. And when do we take risk? We only take risk when the room we're in is full of trust. The problem is we've learned to trust and verify. Can I trust this person and that person? And we set up elaborate checks and balances. Aristotle, the other moral philosopher that I admire, taught us that the virtue and value of trust exists in giving it away. And when you give trust away, people are 22 times more likely to take risk that leads to innovation, that leads to progress. Trust is actually a drug. When someone receives trust, oxytocin is released in their brain, and whatever makes them scared of you subsides. Coming from trust is about giving it away. I'll tell you 2 stories really quick. There was a guy in New York, and he sold donuts for a living. The guy across there also sold donuts. Same price, equally fresh, equally delicious. The only innovation he had is he put a tray there, and he said to his customers, I'm not going to count money. I trust you to pay me and make your own change. That was the only difference, and he won. The rock band Radiohead trusts its fans to pay what they think the music is worth, and they made more money in that album than all the other albums put together. In Indonesia, this is a country fighting corruption more than you can imagine, and instead of more police on the street, they now have 10,000 honesty cafes where they are teaching citizens to take food off the shelves, and instead of go to cashier, to put money in a jar and make their own change. That's how fast good ideas spread in this world. What these inspirational leaders understand, besides being values-based and giving trust away, they understand the most ancient paradox of moral philosophy, the paradox of success and the paradox of happiness. It turns out that if you pursue happiness or osher, it never comes, it goes away. But if you do something meaningful, valuable, of significance, happiness finds you. There is a corollary in business that if you pursue success, as we've painfully seen, it will elude you. But if you pursue significance, if you truly live and get out of bed to make a difference in the lives of others, to solve a problem or realize an opportunity, success can find you. The best formulation of this in business came from another great, sustainable, enduring company, Johnson & Johnson. When Johnson & Johnson's founder, General Johnson, wrote the moral manifesto of his company, he said, our first responsibility is to make the world a healthier place to the doctors and patients of the world. And then this moral document talks about money. But it says if we live according to these principles, our shareholders should, remember the word should from Adam Smith? Our shareholders should make money, not will make money. Let's do good in the world and as capitalists make money. Let's not do good in order to make money. Let's do good and make money as opposed to doing good in order to make money. And inspirational leaders understand the difference. When they get it right, people can be inspired. When they get it wrong, people disengage and they join those 7 out of 10 who are disengaged. In simple terms, you could walk up to 2 people and say, 2 bricklayers, what are you doing? And one is thinking about what he's doing. And he says, can't you see? I'm laying brick, one on top of the other, and I'm counting how much. The other person says, can't you see? I'm building a cathedral. And because I have a vision of significance, I'm going to focus on because I got to involve others and inspire them to join me, because all cathedrals are bigger than any one of us. The problem is, which is why we need your leadership, inspiration only exists at 5% in terms of the primary driver of human behavior in organizations. Trust is at a crisis level. Only 11% of organizations worldwide have a lot of trust. And significance and the pursuit of significance is still low. So we need your leadership. And as I wrap up, I urge you to think as leaders, but understand that we live in a world where the path ahead is not linear. In business, everybody wants a straight line to the top. But life is curvilinear. It's up and down, forward and back. We don't have a boom and bust cycle or a crisis every 10 years. We have it every 10 days, a tsunami, a Greek bond crisis, a Gulf oil spill, and so on and so on. In an up and down world, it's a journey, and we need the values to keep our feet on the ground, point us north, and guide us in the right direction. So here's my one idea. We've taken this word how, ech, and we've cheapened it. Echata, how are you? How am I going to get from here to there? It's a tactic, a means. How do I get from here to there? What if we saw how not just as a question, lo rak she'ela, but tshuva, the answer. If how was the answer, it was an ethic of human endeavor, a platform for innovation, a way of thinking and relating to other people. If how was not just a tactic or a question, but an answer, we would focus on the how, we would do the how, we would lead with the how, and we would build how-based organizations. It seems, with your applause, that this idea resonates. If so, I urge you to take one step, because we know that journeys are about the first step. And finally, I want to conclude with this thought that fills my heart to talk about right here in Jerusalem. American managers, more than ever, are fond of telling people, hope is not a strategy. Show me the money, show me the plan. They're very analytic. Hope is not a strategy. When our President Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, you have nothing to fear but fear itself after our greatest crisis, that was a double negative way of saying don't lose hope. When people lose hope, they detach from the world. They disconnect. When they are filled with hope, they lean into the world. They see it as a source of meaning. They see other people in the world as people they can have meaningful relationships with together to build cathedrals. There is no country in the world that understands spiritually, morally, and practically that hope is a value. And that if we can inspire people in hope, we can continue to change the world and do tikkun olam. Imagine if as leaders, we started to truly and consistently get our hows right and focused on the how much hope we would have and how into the world we would lean and how much significance we would achieve. Thank you.